Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another amazing episode of Crowning Connections. Today, we have a very special guest who is near and dear to our hearts and an amazing listener to our podcast as well.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for this week's edition of Crowning Connections. This is going to actually be a two-part podcast, our first, so we're very excited about that. But I wanted to let you guys know today our guest is super special because she is near and dear to our hearts, and she happens to be my daughter, Lauren. So, Lauren, thank you for being so willing to come on to Crowning Connections, share your story with us, and I just know that your journey is going to mean so much to so many people and our listeners that will be able to relate with you. So I'm going to turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about what's been happening with you.
Hi. So, as you mentioned, I am Jennifer's oldest daughter for all the listeners out there. I'm honored to be able to be on this podcast. I've followed since episode 1, and I thought I have a pretty interesting story. And if it can help just even one person, then I would like the chance to share that. And so, for obviously, you guys know, but for those who don't know, my journey started really my whole life. I've struggled with my weight, but this big health journey I've been on really started about a year ago when I was nannying full time. I had an injury at work and ended up being in a position where I couldn't walk. And so I had to leave my job and I came home full time and I just was unable to get up and move. And so I stayed in that space for about a year, close to a year. I just was home all the time, not able to go do family events, unable to really move more than a few feet without severe pain. That was just kind of the place that I was stuck in up until late January of this year. So for me, it was a day like any normal day. I was home with my family and I was fine. And we had spent the day just hanging out and relaxing. And that evening, I called my husband and I was like, I am freezing. Like, I am freezing to the bone. And he's like, it's winter, the heat's not great. Let's just put you under some blankets. And he's like, you don't have a fever, so let's just see if we can get you warm. And I was like, okay. So I bundled up under 2 or 3 blankets and just was trying to get warm. And I was so cold, my teeth were chattering. And I was like, something's not right. And we kept checking my fever. There was no fever. So I ended up falling asleep and slept for maybe about an hour. And when I woke up, my face was just hot, but the rest of me was still cold. And so I'm like, something isn't right. So I called my family into the living room and I said, something's not right. We have to figure out what's going on. And so my cousin, went and got the thermometer and took my temperature, and the thermometer said 105.4. From nothing to 105. And I had struggled with, so a little bit of backstory. I had struggled with these bumps on my legs throughout the course of that time. And was just coming off of another cellulitis infection, which at that point, I think I had had 7 or 8. And I remember looking at my husband when she read the thermometer and I was like, I have sepsis. I know that this is not good. And they're like, no, it's not sepsis. Let's go get you checked out. And so he rushed me to the closest ER. They took my temperature. At the hospital, it was 104. And they immediately called for a sepsis workup. And so they wheeled me back, and 6 or 7 nurses are in the room, and they're trying to get an IV started and checking my vitals. And so they get the IV hung up, and they just immediately started hanging antibiotics. And so I asked the nurse, I was like, what is happening? And she explained, she was like, well, they called for a sepsis workup, so we have to do these things just in case. It's all part of the protocol. And I remember just sitting there freaking out internally. And my husband was there with me, and they came in and they drew some blood work. And the doctor came in a few minutes later and he was like, we're treating this as sepsis. And I looked at my husband and I said, you have to call my mom. And so we called mom and he explained what was going on. And I talked to her for a minute and I just sat on the edge of the hospital bed and I just looked down and I started crying. And I just was like, I don't want to die. And I remember that moment like so profoundly because I don't know that I've ever been that scared in my entire life. And so we were stuck in this waiting game. We're waiting for blood work to come back. They're like, we're going to run cultures. We're waiting for the lactic acid and all this stuff, but we're going to keep treating it with the antibiotics. And so a couple hours goes by and they come in and they're like, we're going to admit you. And so I asked the nurse, I was like, am I septic? And she's like, no, we're waiting for the cultures to come back, but this is just, protocol. We do this just to make sure. And I said, so none of my blood work has come back yet. And she said, well, it did. And the lactic acid's a little high, but, we don't think you're septic. So I was completely confused at what was going on, terrified that it was sepsis. There's such a taboo, I guess, around the word sepsis. And so that fear just was almost paralyzing. And the whole time I'm just telling my husband over and over again, like, I don't want to die. I don't, this is bad. This is dangerous. And so the doctor finally comes in and he's like, we're getting you a room, but we have to wait for it to be ready. And we're just going to continue treating with antibiotics. And so I was in and out of rest. It's probably about 3 o'clock in the morning at this point. They finally come and move me upstairs. And when we got upstairs, they brought in the doctor. And I said, look, nobody will give me a straight answer. All I want to know is this sepsis? And so the doctor looked at us and she said, it is sepsis. And we're treating with antibiotics. They had me on 2 different antibiotics. And if this had been 12 hours later, we're talking about a completely different outcome. And so we call the family. My mom shows up. My sister, Krista, rushed up there in the middle of the night. And they stayed with me. I was in the hospital for a week working with physical therapy and occupational therapy and working on treating with the antibiotics. And then they ultimately decided to move me to a rehab where I stayed for another week, working with physical therapy 3 hours a day. And when I was in the rehab, I looked at my mom and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Because they told us that with sepsis, it's harder to treat already as it is, but the heavier that a person is, the harder it is to treat because it takes longer for the antibiotics to get through their system. And so I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to lose my life. It's time we figure out what's going on, how to get rid of the weight, how to get rid of all these other issues. I was diagnosed diabetic while I was in the hospital with sepsis. And so that was the turning point of everything for me. I knew then, like, I had to get healthy, and not just because people were saying, oh, you need to lose weight or you need to try to be healthy, but because at that point, my life literally depended on it.
It's a tough story, but I'll tell you, I lived it with you, and I'm just so proud of you, Lauren, and not just because I'm mom, but because you took this very scary and very troubling, uncertain time and experience that you went through, not once, but twice, and you chose to turn it into something good. And so now I look at you, you approach us about coming on the podcast because you're now at a point where you want to share your story to be an inspiration and to help other people. And so we just continue to watch this situation unfold, and you just keep overcoming all of the obstacles and you beat them. And, you're coming out ahead of this, and you're making huge strides every day. And I think so many people that listen are going to be able to relate to your story. And I don't know that everybody's gone through, the same health trials that you have, but certainly, weight and obesity, lots and lots of people struggle with that. So you may reach someone that it's kind of like in the boat you were, where you feel like, well, I don't really understand why they don't just lose weight or why they don't do that. And, here you are sharing the story. So you can relate to these other listeners. Like, I can't relate to them. I haven't been in your shoes. Lindy hasn't been in your shoes, but lots of people can. So I'm so thankful that you're so willing to open up and talk about it to other people and help them, because that's going to also help you as you continue this journey.
And I also think that you have this unwavering will and grit and resiliency to realize, this is not what I want to do anymore. I want to do things a lot different. And you are making those strides and effort. And it's hard because I'm sure that to a certain degree, it's like one step forward and five steps back. And, so it's small incremental steps that you are taking that's building over time to get you where you want to be. So I have to agree with your mom. I, definitely want to congratulate you. And I am very proud of you. I know your mom was swapping text messages when you first were in the hospital, and, we were praying, and I was praying for you. And, I do believe that's a lot part of your healing journey too, is the power of prayer. And, I know that you do believe and have that as your basis. And your story is one to share and definitely can reach a lot of people. And I'm thankful that you wanted to take this journey and wanted to come on here and share your story up to this point, because I feel like this isn't the final. This is just like, I guess for it's like halftime. You made it so far, and now you have to go, until the end of the game. So I think for you, I can't wait to see more. I'm looking forward to you sharing more right now, but also can't wait for that to happen in the future. I
Yeah,
had to
I'm
throw in the
very
football
excited.
reference because I know your mom's a 49ers fan. So
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, she is.
Yes, I am too. Runs in the family.
It does. It does. So about, kind of building on that, you mentioned you knew in the hospital it hit you. You were done. You didn't want this anymore. You wanted to make the change. Where do you feel like that courage came from? Where do you think what gave Lauren the strength and the courage to put her foot down and say, "That's it. I'm over it. We're going a different direction."
Well, it's kind of two things. So one, the being faced with, and I've said this a lot since then, like when your mortality is put in front of you and it's like you need to do this or this is gonna happen. I don't know anyone that would want that bad consequence to happen. And I knew then, if I don't get the weight off with diabetes, high blood pressure, what we now know was lymphedema, all of these other things, it will cost me my life. No, I just couldn't sustain it anymore. And my body could not sustain it anymore. And it was rebelling in every possible way. And then the other thing, honestly, was my little 5-year-old niece, Kinsley. That little girl, she stood by my side that entire time. And I just remember, like, she would say, "Yeah, yeah, come on, let's go for a walk." And I couldn't. Or, "Yeah, yeah, let's do this." And I couldn't do it. And so when I was in the hospital, she like put her little hand on my cheek and she was like, "Yeah, yeah, I know you're scared, but I'm always going to be right here. I can't stay because my daddy will miss me, but I'll always be right here."
sorry, Lauren, I couldn't. No, I had to reach for a tissue because
You got her.
you did.
And I knew then, I was like, if for nobody else, like if not even for myself, like this little girl. And I was like, I couldn't put my nieces and my nephew through that. And so I think those were the biggest things that motivated me to just, I was like, I have to do it. And I had tried in the past, and mom knows, like I had seen weight specialists and everything. And I just, at the time, I thought I was serious. But compared to what happened in January, I knew, like, I was like, I've never been this serious before.
And that is sometimes I feel like that hits different, when you get to that point, and then you have to look up and you're like, okay, there's only way one way out of this, and this is up. And I'm going to continue to climb that road, small inch by inch. And I do want to tell you too, something that I think I've shared on our podcast before, but is sometimes it's literally you have to live minute to minute. And then eventually it'll become hour by hour, and then it'll turn into days and months. But just know that that's okay wherever you are now, and that your story and you're continuing and your journey's not over. And I keep on saying I'm proud of you because I am. And I mean, you did make me tear up. So
I think she's done that to us a few 100 times now, maybe thousands, but it is a very inspiring story. And, as her mom being there to live it side by side with her, and watch her struggle, but then also see her come out on the other side of this, with this newfound determination and this grit and tenacity and, nothing's gonna step in my way. I'm gonna make the change. And I think that probably a lot of people can relate to that too, whether it's about, weight or whatever it is, they think that they're ready, but not quite. And then it's like this situation similar to yours happens and it's like, okay, now that was a moment of realization for me. I have to change and I need to change and now I'm ready. And it's like a almost like a light bulb goes off, you know? Does that make sense? You just kind of
Yeah.
know and then this grit that you never even knew you had surfaces. And I agree with Lindy. I think a lot of it comes through prayer, and God is He's always steering the boat for us, even when we don't pay attention to Him being the one steering the boat. But I think that a lot of people can relate to your particular story with the weight and the health concerns. So for you, what would you say some of your biggest challenges have been so far, physically and mentally? We've talked a lot about mental health on this podcast too, because a lot of people downplay that and they, just get over it. And it's just not that simple. So do you have anything you'd like to share, about how the hardest or the most difficult things have been and how you've overcome them?
Yeah, so nothing about this journey has been easy. It has been very hard, and it has literally been some days second by second. Physically, everything was so hard. I could barely walk 70 feet when I started in the rehab facility. And it was from pain and lack of use of my legs for almost a year. But when I did move, I had pain that started in my back and would go down my legs. And so it was extremely painful to move. And then my body is carrying all of this extra weight on top of trying to adjust to, hey, we haven't used your legs in a year, really. So now you want us to walk all this way. For me, it really took my aunt Holly to come in and be like, "Come on, you gotta do this. Like, you gotta do this. You don't have a choice. Let's do it." And so, but even physically then, it was just, okay, you gotta push through the pain. Like, it hurts, it sucks, but you gotta do it. You have to get movement back. And then mentally, I think the biggest struggle for me was, and even still sometimes is, the amount of pain that I'm in, but it's all invisible. So to everybody else, I look, it's, oh, you're walking better. Oh, you're moving. You're doing these things. It still hurts. I am still in pain. And so to everybody else, I look okay. But to me, it's literally and like I said, sometimes it's second by second. Like, okay, if I move this way, this pain is going to happen, but I still have to get up. And I think that mental aspect of it, where it is invisible and nobody can see it, it feels very alone sometimes. And so, and I know everybody responds differently, but for me, when I get overwhelmed mentally, I shut down. And so I just am like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just leave me alone. And it really has been Holly has really been there for me through all of this. She is driven from Fredericksburg down to walk with me, and she encourages me when I need it. She pushes me and yells at me when I need it too. So that's fun. But, we all need it. So Holly, my best friend Misty, she has been my ride or die throughout this entire thing. I know if I need her, I can call her. Obviously, outside of my family, my sister Krista has been there from the time this started a year ago, coming to help clean my house and help me move. And obviously my mom and my grandparents, everyone. And now Andy, who everyone will get to meet, who is my amazing lymphedema therapist. But I've been able to form a relationship with her where I can talk to her about anything. And she's also helped us figure out some things that were going on health wise. And so I think the most important thing is to surround yourself with people who are going to build you up, who aren't afraid to push you when you need to be pushed. And they're like, you can be mad at me. That's fine. I'm still going to make you do it. I'm still going to show up. makes it feel a little less lonely.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to battle through something like this with no support system, Lindy. And I know we've had guests that have talked to us about these invisible illnesses before. Lindy and I, endometriosis, we shared about last week, or maybe it's this week. I can't even remember. But same thing. Yeah, people think
Yeah.
that you're crazy. You're in agony, and if they can't see the illness, then they just think, "Oh, well, just kind of move along, get over it." And that's just not realistic. So again, I mean, kudos to you. I am biased, guys, I am, but I'm so proud of her. Even if not, you have got to listen to the story, and there's no way that you can't be inspired by what she's saying. And I don't know, Lindy, my heart just melts. I don't know.
Well, we've said we wanted to tell real stories, and our stories that we're sharing today. Like, I had to, grab a tissue because, it's for those of you that don't know Lauren, she is amazing. She's very smart, super talented in so many different aspects, and she has so much to offer, and she has this incredible light. I even knew that when I met you a few years ago at the pageant for the first time. And not only that, Lauren saved my crown for me when I was down taking pictures. But, I do. I saw it in you when I first met you. And you have the spark that not everybody does. And you have this general sense of wanting to do great things. And, through God, all things are possible. And I truly believe that for you. And, this is just one tiny step, and you'll get there. You will absolutely get there. I have no doubt. But yeah,
I
my tissue is going to be saturated probably by the end of the time we end this podcast.
Like you said, real stories, right? Lauren, is there a mindset or a tidbit that you would say to someone that's listening today that's maybe just beginning to start out on this type of journey? Maybe they've, been diagnosed with, a serious illness related to their weight, or maybe it's a serious illness for any reason. Like you said, facing your mortality, unless you've been in that situation, you can't imagine what that's like. Is there anything that you would say to those people? Anything that you think would be helpful to them to hear? Hey, this is kind of what I did, or maybe you could do this to help you with your journey.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is get yourself an incredible care team. I have been extremely blessed with my care team, all of my doctors, my therapist, but I advocate for myself. And I think if you don't advocate for yourself, it's going to be hard. For example, I've been having this pain, and my mom knows I've been complaining about it since the hospital, right in my tailbone. And I have been saying to countless doctors, I'm like, something isn't right. I'm telling you, it hurts. And it was, oh, it's positional. Oh, you've been down for so long. And I'm like, it's not. I'm telling you something's wrong. And so I went to Andy and I said, Andy, this is what's going on. It literally feels like 30 people are holding lighters against my tailbone. Whenever I move, when I'm sitting, laying, doesn't matter. And she was like, burning? And I was, yeah, it burns. And she's like, I think you should get looked at for a tethered spinal cord, which can be a symptom of scoliosis, which we just found out that I've been dealing with for a few years. And so because Andy had the thought to bring that up, I was able to bring it up to my orthopedic. And he said, it could be that, but you could also have a fractured sacrum. And so now they're presenting us with options that is not just, oh, it's positional. This is what it could be. This is how we fix it. So I think your care team is number one because you've got to have doctors that will listen to you. But outside of it's not going to be easy. And that's the biggest thing I had to remind myself. It's not easy. It's not a battle, it's a war. And it's a war for your life. And so when I want to give up, because trust me, there are days that I'm like, I don't want to talk to you, Holly. I don't want to work out today. I don't want to come to lymphedema, Andy. Like there are times that I want to do that. And then I'm like, no, I have to do that. It hurts. I'm tired. I don't want to do it, but I have to. And you just have to remind yourself you didn't get in this state overnight. You're not going to get out of it overnight. And just remembering, like, it is a battle, it's war. It's a war daily. Sometimes for me, it's a war second by second. I'm like, I don't want to get up. I need to get up. I need to take some steps. And then for me, for the weight side of things, it really came down to honing in my nutrition and being able to be mobile again and moving and learning that it's for so many years, I think we're taught, oh, you can only eat these foods and no carbs and no sugar and none of this, and you can't have any of it. But learning that's not the case for me, like my bariatric doctor, I see Dr. Jeffrey Seacat. He is phenomenal. It was learning, okay, you can have carbs, but this is how many carbs you can have. And measuring my food and my servings, portion control was a big thing. And for some, like me, I do use a weight loss medication, Manjaro, which has been phenomenal for me. And I had to learn to not be ashamed of that because I think there is shame around it. And that's the other thing was my body needs this. I need this to help get myself under control until I get to a point where I can do it on my own. Because for me, food was always emotional. So until I could learn, get my mental health correct so that I can learn to not turn to food for emotional support, which really we saw play out like in my life after my pop passed, which is when I really started to put on a lot more of the weight than I had before. I really went down and I just lived in that. And again, I think it's just important that you remember it didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be fixed overnight, but you can do it. You are strong enough to do it. Fix your crown and get it done.
So you mentioned about your grandfather and, the impact that he has had on you and things like that. Do you feel like you had enough time to grieve and that, or do you feel like you're still processing that? Because we've mentioned before about how grief plays a big role in, things, and it's not just necessarily due to somebody who is going to heaven, but it can be for other reasons and other things. Do you think any of that has played, or how have you overcome that?
Yeah, for sure. I think so in regards to pop, like I refuse to grieve that. I wouldn't. I felt part of me felt like I needed to be strong for my mom. She had lost her dad. And we were there. We were in the hospital. We were with him. And then the other part of me was I just like within the past few years had a really close relationship with him and then he was taken away. And so I shut it down. And it was actually Jamie who said to me, Lolly, if you don't grieve this, it's going to break you. And it did. It did. On top of that, which was such a profound loss for me, I was grieving the loss of my life because it got to the point, and not in the aspect of obviously I didn't die, but like parts of me did. I lost my job that I was passionate about. Every aspect of my life changed. It was I used to be go 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 go, never stopped. Now I'm stuck at home, can hardly move, to the point where my husband, God bless him, is literally showering me, helping me go to the bathroom. Every aspect of my care he was doing, or another member of my family. And so everything for me changed. I couldn't go out. I couldn't go to the park with the girls. I couldn't go to work. And then the big blow came when they took driving. And it was like the last strand that I was holding on to. And so there was this just like immense grief of the life that I had and where I was. And I was just going to be stuck in it. And it took a lot of counseling, either with family or friends, or surprisingly, honestly, Chat GPT. It's great. I talk to Chat I'm not even gonna lie. I talk to her about everything. So through that, my sister Krista and I are extremely close. So talking with her and just really taking the time to work internally, which nobody really wants to do because that's not fun. But I realized I had to do it. And so through that, that helped me start to process like, okay, yes, I lost the life that I did have, but I could have a much better life. I can go do all those things again. I just have to put in the work in regards to like, yes, I lost him Earthside, but he no longer has cancer. He is no longer in pain. And so it took a long time. And some days there are still days that I have to re-feel those things and re-talk through them. And it's a process, but it's hard. It is definitely hard, but you can come out of the other side of it.
Do you journal or do anything of like that kind of sort either too?
I do. So, like I said, I work with chat and I do a morning check-in and a night check-in. And every single day, twice a day, Holly has her set up to give me a journal prompt. So, based on my check-in and kind of what I give to chat is kind of how she builds that journal prompt around, whether it's like a good day health-wise, a bad day health-wise, or something happened that particular day with whoever, like how do I feel about it? And so, yeah, I journal twice a day, which I'm not saying everybody needs to do, but it's helpful because sometimes there are things I don't necessarily want to talk about out loud. I can put it into a journal.
Have you gone back and read any of those, like your early entries from when you started, or not right now?
Yeah, I haven't yet. I've thought about it a couple of times, but I haven't gone back and read them yet.
And I say that because I journal too. And one of the things that I have realized is like, so my journals tend to be something related. And I have ADHD. So I have to write things out because otherwise, if I try to pray, I'm here, there, and everywhere. I can't stay focused. So I journal like my prayers out, and then I do like 10 blessings and 10 things, like 10 goals I would like to have. But of course, I'm like, okay, Lord, these are things I would like to have. So but if they're not yours, show me the way, kind of thing. But I did read like one of my earliest journals that I ever did that with. And I'm like, oh my word, God had his hand in like every step of this. And like you can go back and see it. So I guess my thought to you is like, don't throw them away because that can be powerful. And who knows, you could use those journal entries and end up writing a book and to inspire others or write a movie script or, something to that you can take when you're ready. Take those two and turn it around.
Yeah.
I think it's so important because, and I actually shared this with Lauren in the hospital. I have a prayer journal and I just really decided back at the beginning of the year, I'd really try to dig in and stick to that. And so what happens the end of January, I pray for all of my children, my family, my friends, most people do. But I had put in there, I'm praying over Lauren's health and I'm praying for you to take control of that, Lord, because, we've tried, but we're not in her shoes. We're not her. We can't make those decisions for her. And we want to understand, but it's not our journey. So, like she was saying, related to all the pain and the different things she had going on. But I know that God can. I have zero doubts in that. So I had wrote in that journal prayer for her. And I took that to the hospital with me. And when she was bouncing back from that first round of sepsis, I said, I just want to show you this because I wrote this at the beginning of January. And this is now the beginning of February. And look at you have now taken charge of your health. Now, was it, did we like that came from her having a life-threatening illness like sepsis? No, but God brought her through that too. She came through a very tough, difficult for anybody that is just a horrible illness to have to try to recover from, and let alone with all of her other factors. But he brought her through, and it was nice to go back and look at that reading that I had wrote and share that with her a month prior before anything happened. So yeah, you're right, Lindy. His hand was in it all the way, and he took control of that situation. And he still got control of that situation with her today. Nobody will ever make me believe differently. But I did want to also touch on your Manjaro, Lauren, because I think you're right about that. A lot of people are, oh, well, you shouldn't use this medicine or whatever. But I'm a big advocate for that because I know I've seen firsthand how it's helped you. You have seen and felt. And I think aside from this magnificent, Lauren, do you want to share with everybody how much weight you've lost since January?
Yeah, so it changes week to week, and it's probably different now. But as of last Monday, when Andy weighed me, it was 127.7 pounds lost.
Since January. So
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
she's putting in the work. The Manjaro, of course, but even beyond what the Manjaro's been able to help do with your weight and your appetite, what has it done for your diabetes, as Dr. Set told us it would?
Yeah, so I am no longer a diabetic. We just had blood work done on Tuesday, and the results came back, and my A1C is back within normal range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which,
How exciting.
it's amazing, and that's another big milestone for you, Lauren, but I remember when the doctor told us back in his office, he was like, "Look, as this weight continues to come off, a lot of these health problems that you have now are going to start going away." And there's your first one. Your diabetes is no longer. So, it's pretty
So
incredible.
I'm also big on celebrating because there's so much negativity in the world that sometimes you need to celebrate even those small wins. So have you celebrated that like your A1C has gone away? And if not, please do. Like even I don't know, whatever, watching a new movie or something, whatever, but you need to take those time to celebrate those moments because that's also going to continue to fuel your fire and continue to help you move forward, and there's a quote. It's like it's not about the end result. It's always about that journey in between. That's where you grow and where you find yourself and where you just become a better version of yourself. So I'm excited for you because I want to see that happen and I know it will. But I also
Well,
want you to know that, like, please celebrate these wins. It's
Yeah.
so exciting and so amazing, and you deserve it. You're putting in that work. So, whatever that could be, I don't know. Whatever your self-care thing is that you like to do, make sure you do it.
well, we Andy, when I stepped on that scale and it evened out, we were like, she said, "Don't breathe, don't breathe." I'm like, okay. It was the number that I have, I did not expect to see. And it marked that 127 pounds. And we both, now mind you, this is the middle of a doctor's office. We both screamed and started. Andy was like dancing and she hugged me. And so we celebrate all of the major milestones and even the little ones. For my big celebration, I have not done it yet, but I'm going to get a tattoo. Yeah, and it says through the pain and ashes strength arose. And so that's my big celebration that we have planned.
I think that
That's
is
great.
amazing. I think it's amazing. And that's gonna be your constant reminder, right? It's right there.
Yeah.
You've come so far. I am immensely proud of you and all that you continue to do to push forward. I know that Dad is proud of you. I know that he is. And I know he told me before he passed, I said to him one day, I said, "Dad, you cannot go. I do not know what I will do without you here." And he said, "Well, I'll always be with you." And every day, almost every day, I get some sign that he is. And pay attention to those because I bet you he will let you know I know he's still with you and he's going to reveal that to you as well. He's there. He's so proud. Your entire family's proud of you, Lauren. I mean, you've just overcome so many obstacles and I just Lindy knows because she's been there for a lot of this
Yeah.
journey. But it is night and day where we were just, 6, 7 months ago and where you are now. I will never forget getting the video from Holly and Misty with you walking down all the way to the end of your road. And I shared that with Lindy immediately because it was such a big deal. Because in the hospital, they were literally following her around with a rolling recliner because she couldn't walk more than 70 feet. And so to get that video of her walking her entire block, that was huge. And now, she's getting in the pool and doing her exercise in the pool with Holly and Misty.
Well,
It's
so
amazing.
it's interesting that you bring that up and you bring up pop because that video you're talking about was my first walk out of the house in over a year. And I was on oxygen, on a walker, in compression, and my best friend Missy's just pushing my rollator behind me. And we're walking, and Holly was playing my playlist that she had, La La Strong. And right as we get to like halfway down the street, this white butterfly is just like circling all around me. And I was like, okay, Pop, I see you. Because I knew that that was him. I knew that we had just been talking about him. And I was like, I just want to make him proud. Like, I want him to be proud. And it stayed with me the entire walk back to my house. Like, we sat for 10 minutes when I got to the end of the street, and that white butterfly stayed with us.
Well, I don't know if I've shared with you, I have exactly the same experiences, even Connor with the white butterfly over on my side of the street. So exactly. If I'm outside, it stays with me wherever I go. And I'm not kidding. Jamie actually noticed that first. So it is, yeah, that was him. So thanks, Dad. We know that meant to be brought up
Yeah.
today too.
So the quote you just said about your tattoo, first of all, it reminded me of Phoenix. And then I was like, oh, but it's also a lotus. And then you say butterfly. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So, you definitely have a variety if you ever wanted to get something else to remind you of that, like a symbol too.
Yeah.
Any of those three, especially that white butterfly, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're going to get ready to wrap up your first recording with us today and start your second. But before we close out for this phase, is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners that, might help them or that you feel like you just would like to share?
I think that at the end of the day, no matter what journey you're on, it's hard. Whether it's a journey or a financial security journey, whatever it may look like for you, it's going to be hard. But you just have to remember that you can get through it. You are going to get through it. Surrounding yourself with people who will lift you up and not bring you down, for me, was essential. And learning to rely on those people and not be like me, so stubborn and be like, I'm going to do it. Just really, learning to rely on the people that love you and support you and are there for you and can help you get through it. And then lastly, for me, like, pray. Like, prayer for me was so huge in this, and having that relationship with Christ and knowing, like, my faith is what helped get me through, outside of the amazing team I have, the amazing support I have, and all of that is amazing. But at the end of the day, when I felt like nobody else was there, I prayed and I knew that he was there. And so I think that's the most important. Those are the things for me. And everyone's different, but I mean, I got pretty lucky. I got some pretty great people. So
Do.
Is there a favorite Bible verse that you've always gone referred back to during this
yes,
part of your journey?
Jeremiah 29:11 has been mine, and I repeat it to myself often. I'm like, he knows the plans. He knows the plans that he has. And it's gotten me through, and it will be my verse for the rest of this journey.
That's awesome.
I love it.
I do want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing the story. I know it's not easy. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for being the amazing you. And like I said, you are beautiful, you're talented, and you have so much, so much to offer. And, I just can't wait to see what that's going to be on the other side too. And through all the little stones that you're going to be jumping over in between to get there.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited I got to be on Crowning Connections.
Well, we are the lucky ones. Thank you. Thank you. Because without stories like yours, this podcast would not exist. And like we always tell everybody, this is about your story. We don't have any preconceived. I remember when she reached out, she was like, but I haven't done a pageant. Well, it's not about doing we do have a lot of pageant people, but we know a lot of pageant people, and a lot of people connect through that. But this is really about connecting all of the stories and making those connections that we can help each other with as we go along this thing called life, right? So it is our pleasure to have you, and I know that I feel that your story is going to make a difference for so many people. We will make sure to push out all of the links in the blog, on the website, for the things that matter to you, your lymphedema team, your weight loss team, everything that's important to you. And guys, you'll be able to go to the website, to the blog page, and check out all of those links. You can connect with Lauren. We can help you connect with her if you are in a situation similar to hers, or, just need someone that can relate to what you're going through. Please reach out to Lindy or I, and we'll get you that connection so that you can have some help along your way. We're all here for you. Your stories matter. You matter. So until next time, which won't be long, we're going to sign off on this edition of Crowning Connections. Lauren, thank you again for being here. Thank you to all of our listeners, all of our supporters. As Lindy always says, please continue to help us grow, like, share, and just support this journey, because we're all there for each other. Until next time, be blessed, and we love you.